Hello. In this part of the Learning Excel module, we're going to focus on the function called VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP actually stands for vertical lookup. So what the heck is a VLOOKUP? VLOOKUP is a function in Excel that allows you to look up data in a list or table. It will look up that data in one column and retrieves the data in the same row in another column that you designate and then place it where you'd like. So what does that mean? And what's it used for? Well, what it's used for is for grades, inventory, phone book or Rolodex, employee info. There's lots of applications for it. And once you see how it works, you'll understand and start to get some ideas of what you can use it for. So how does it work? In this example of how to make it work, I'm going to show you, and let's just clear this out. We're just going to clear that from the beginning. Boop. And what we're going to do is, I want you to imagine that you're a teacher, which you very well could be, and that you've been putting in grades all term, but when it's time to put the final grade in, the only one that's really important that you have to send is the final grade. Wherever you're sending the grades or how you're turning them in, they don't care about what Dan got on his first project or what Jack got on his third project. They just want to see what that final grade is and where they stand for the class. So let's assume that even though I only have one column of grades here, that we have already accumulated all these grades. This is the total, and now we need the letter grade that we're going to turn in. Okay? So, because they don't even want the numbers, they just want the letter grade. So the way the VLOOKUP works is that I have to make a function that is going to look at this data and put the proper letter grade in here depending on what the score, the total score for that student was. So to do that, there's a few different ways. I go to make sure I'm on my formulas tab. You can put it in manually where you'd actually go and you type in, you'd start off with equals, and you'll notice as I start to type, if I know what I'm looking for, it actually pops up. Now, this is all great and well except for one thing. Sometimes I don't know or remember what those functions are and how they work and what I'm supposed to plug in. But that's not the only way I can type in an actual function. If I know what I'm looking for, I can actually look under the specific type. Is it a logical function? Is it a text? Date and time, lookup? There it is right there, because once again, VLOOKUP would make sense that it's under lookup. But there's a way that I enjoy even better. So if I click here, I'm just going to go to the insert function. And when I do that, it pulls up this nice little menu here that allows me, here's some of them, but I can pull up any of those, and we'll notice that a lot of these are the ones that are up here. But I can actually go in and I can literally just type VLOOK, if I type right, VLOOKUP and hit go. There it is right there. And when I double click on that, lo and behold, it pops up this nice little menu. Now for the person who's just starting, who doesn't remember all the functions, what's supposed to be typed in, this is really good because it kind of breaks things down pretty easily as to what I need to do. So what I need to do is have it look up what the score is, look at the table array, choose a letter based off of what that score is, and drop it into here. Okay. So most of this is actually is pretty straightforward. I'm already in the box where I'm putting this function in, so we know that the grade is going to go in there. First part's done. The second part, which is the lookup value, well, where's it going to get that from? And you notice the cursor is blinking here, so I'm just going to click right in there. Okay. Now, you know what? Before I do this, I'm going to hit cancel because I want you to see something. If I do this again, I'm going to insert function. There's VLOOKUP. There's one thing I want to point out that's actually pretty important, and that's it right down here. Whenever I've I've selected any of these individual functions, it gives me a nice little bit of information here about that particular function. So it gives me what the formula essentially is, or what's going in, and it tells me a definition. Looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table and then returns a value in the same row from the column you specify. By default, the table must be sorted in an ascending order. Why is that important? Well, that's important because my grade scale I purposely made from lowest to highest. It's going to be looking at these values. And believe it or not, if I had it from A's to F's, or the highest number to the lowest number, this wouldn't work. So this is really important that when you're using it in this particular way, that you have it ascending. It's going from the lowest to the highest at the bottom. So now let's just kind of go forward, and we'll just pick that. So lookup value, we're going to look up this value here in the score. Boom. The table array, click the cursor in there. And now I'm going to grab from the 0 down to the A and grab both columns. Now they're in here. Column index number. What that basically is asking, alright, so it's going to look at these values and these columns, and this array could have actually been really long with lots of different columns in it. I wouldn't necessarily separate it. But if I had all these different values, what I'd want to do is choose, this is 1, 2, so if these letters were actually in N, I'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It would be column 7. But since they're right next to each other, it's column 2. So I'm just going to go column 2, right over here. And it's even telling me, oh, good old Dan got a B minus. So I'm going to hit OK. And there we go. Now we're almost done. Now normally when you'd want to, now I don't want to have to do that for every single one of these. Imagine if I have like 100 students and I'm going to be there typing that same formula over and over again. So your first impulse would be, oh, I'm just going to grab the little box on the bottom right, and when I drag that down, it replicates that function down into each cell beneath. But when I do that, something goes horribly awry. I'm getting some that are correct and some that aren't, or some, well, that's not, well, what's going on? So let's take a look at why this is giving me these error messages and getting really weirded out. Now, when I look at this, I can double click and see the function, and this is nice because it color codes. Here's the blue box, that's the first part. These red letters are these two columns. Now, it's working fine for the first one, working great. If I press enter, make sure not to click on anything because then you'll start adding things into this that we don't want. I'm going to press enter. Now if I double click on this one, you want to notice something. My red box has shifted. It's no longer up at the top. And if I press enter and let's go down to this one, now it's way down here. Now I can just manually adjust all of these, right? And then that'll fix it, but once again, I'm trying to save time. I don't want to do that. Now that's working, but I don't want to do that for every single one of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this original one function so that I don't have to do all of that. I'm just going to click and drag down, right click. I'm going to clear the contents so it's nice and clean. And now I'm going to go back into this one, and this is how we fix it. We double click. And what we want to do is that even though we pull this box down, we're going to do that again. We only want, essentially what happens when you do that is it adds a value to the numbers that we would see, the cells, like this one, and this one. We only want to change that first one, the blue box, so that each corresponding one is going to go, oh, this one's going to look up 5, this one's going to look up 95, and so on and so on. But our grade scale stays in the same spot. So what I have to do is I'm going to click, and I'm going to use a shortcut. I'm going to click right on that H6, which is the first cell here, and I'm going to hit F4, not two separate numbers, the actual F4 key at the top of your keyboard. And you'll notice what it does is it puts a $sign in front of the H and a $sign in front of the 6. I can manually do that, or I could just hit F4 when I click on it. So that was just hitting F4. I could do F4 again, Or I could just type in those dollar signs and put them in front of those, basically wherever I need them, those values. Now when I press enter, now if I click on this and drag it down, boom, now we don't have any of those errors. And if I were to drop Jack down to a 5, oh, poor Jack. If we boosted back up, oh, Jack is happy again. And basically now we have a fully functioning table. It's working with this. Make sure not to move this, because then that's going to modify your functions and you'll have to reset your functions. But that's basically the gist of how the old VLOOKUP works. And if you have any questions, just notify us. Now try it out yourself.